Welcome to the Lara Jane Layton Show. This podcast is for you, the person who keeps putting others first. Your self-talk has held you back. You no longer need to take a second seat. Let's explore ways to overcome self-doubt. You can silence that inner bully voice and achieve your full potential. Here's your host, Lara Jane.
Welcome back, friend. I'm here again with another amazing person. Leslie's my new best friend, and we have been chatting away. What I totally love about Leslie's message is how to learn to love you. You, that real you, that you might not even know yet, but to tune in and to find out how to love you through talking to yourself, just like we would our best friends, how to set boundaries so that you know when to walk away, or you know how to set a response when somebody crosses that. Can't make someone not cross it, but we sure can respond differently. So Leslie's had lots of practice doing this in her crazy busy life like the rest of us, and she is here to share with us. And everything that Leslie wanted to share with you is in the show notes right now. Links to her books, links to her places where to get a hold of her. So Leslie, I'm excited. I'm so pleased that you wanted to share this message with our friend, because I know we're the hardest on ourselves. We beat ourselves up, and there's no reason. We are loving creatures. How did you change from being your own bully to being your own best friend?
Jane, I'm glad you asked that. But where I'd really like to start as a preamble to your question is I thought that nobody loved me. And what I discovered was the only person who didn't love me was me. And I also discovered, which I'm sure our friend here can relate to, we work in busy worlds. We have jobs, we have families, we have friends, we have expectations, we have dreams, we have desires. And oftentimes we start doing what I like to call sacrificing ourselves on the altar of somebody else. We are busy trying, because society and, thousands of generations of wisdom, quote unquote, is telling us, especially as women, that these are the things that we must do in order to live a fulfilled life. We must put everybody first. We must, try and maintain this brutal pace. I still remember the commercial. I don't know if you can recall it. The lady comes home and she can cook the bacon and do all these things, and she's wearing high heels and the baby, and she's just come in from work and she's doing all this stuff and making it look so easy. And then I see that, and I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong? Because I definitely am not dressed to the nines. I'm not balancing the baby on my hip as I'm trying to not burn dinner. My ex-husband used to tell me I should write a cookbook on how to go from frozen to the table in 30 minutes or less. And I'm not talking about frozen dinners. I'm talking about frozen pot roast. I'm talking about, frozen chicken, taking it from, the freezer to the table in 30 minutes or less. He, of course, was being insultingly joking, but you know what? It was what it was. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago, I came to the horrible understanding, the horrible realization that, first of all, I didn't love me. I didn't even know who Leslie was. I mean, what in the heck? I didn't even know who Leslie was. I could see Leslie in the mirror, but I had no idea who she was, what her dreams were, what her desires were. Nothing. I knew nothing about her. I could tell you about everybody else. And the sadness that I felt just wash over me. I tell people it was as if I was hit by an emotional tsunami. and driven to the bottom of the Marianas Trench. And then I was fighting my way up, trying to get a breath of air. And since that point in time, I've been on a mission to help the other Leslie out there understand how wonderful she really is. And the thing that I discovered, one of the reasons that I ended up where I was, is because I didn't have any boundaries. I had been taught, as many of us are, I had been taught that these were my responsibilities, that this is what I was supposed to do, that I was supposed to set aside all of my dreams, wishes, desires, whatever, in favor of everybody else, including at the workplace. I had to defer to my bosses, my coworkers, the people, the customers, all of those people. I had to defer everything in order to make sure that their needs were met. And at the same time, no one was asking about my needs. I wasn't even asking about my needs. So when I walked away from my job 10 years ago, it's not really surprising that I crashed and burned for about 6 months. But as I said, what I discovered was I didn't have any boundaries. And people say, well, why do you need boundaries? Well, Jane, do you ever talk to yourself or talk to other people and say, the other day I dropped a plate and I was so stupid that I did that? Have you ever said something like that to yourself or to somebody else about yourself?
It has been a while, but I have called myself stupid more than once.
And you've even shared that with other people, probably, haven't you?
Mm-hmm. I did a stupid thing again. That one would be more common.
Mm. And your friend or whoever you were sharing it with, they might have agreed with you, or they might have disagreed with you, or they might have just, continued on with the conversation and shared something stupid that they had done, right?
Yes.
But what we're doing in those moments is we are teaching other people how to treat us. We are telling other people that it's okay to call us stupid, that it's okay to tell us when we do something, when we trip, when we slip, when we do whatever. It's okay to talk about how ungraceful or how clumsy or whatever we are. So what I understood suddenly in these moments, as I was struggling to, get air from this emotional tsunami, I had taught other people how to treat me. And what I began doing was I began changing how I talked to myself, how I thought about myself. It didn't happen overnight. One of the things that I began with was simply looking in the mirror every morning, looking myself in the eye, and struggling to say, I love you, as I looked at myself. It took a year for me to be able to say that without tears pouring down my face, because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that I deserved it. And I can just imagine the other Leslie who's sitting right there, who's listening right now. They're probably thinking, well, nobody loves me. I don't even love myself. There's no way I can go and look in a mirror every morning at the same time every morning. I set an alarm on my phone for the same time every morning. There's no way I can go look in the mirror and I can say that. It won't be true. It doesn't make any difference if it is true or isn't true in this moment. What does make a difference is that you are saying those words to yourself. Because the other thing that I came to understand is what I desire from somebody else, I need to be giving myself first.
Mm-hmm.
So if I desire for someone to be telling me that they love me, I need to be telling me that I love me. Because remember, I've already said it once. We teach other people how to treat us. And Jane, how many times have you behaved in such a way towards yourself that later you might have cringed when you reflected on it, or somebody else commented about it?
Yeah, it definitely happens. Not as much lately, but yeah, there was a long time that I would cringe thinking about something I had beat myself up over. It was all fine. It was no big deal. Like I look at it now and I go, I'm glad that I was able to change that thought process because it doesn't have to stay that way.
When it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
Nope, it does not.
And when you made the decision to change your thought process, were there times when you would slip back into your old way?
Oh, I still do. But
Okay.
that it doesn't stay as long. The more I practice it, the quicker it is to turn it around.
So what do you say to yourself when you do slip back into the old way?
Oh, I'm going to let go of that limiting thought. I'm going to move on because I have potential.
Yay. That is amazing. That is,
You can tell I
I
practice
am
this
going
in my
to add
head.
that to my, I'm adding that because what I usually simply say is, oh, well, and then I move on.
Yeah,
Just,
I know that I say things that I was, they're programmed. They're responses because this is how I was raised, and this is the way you're supposed to
mhm.
act. And then as you learn how to be more loving and kind to anybody, if you do that to yourself, you give yourself the grace to let go of that limiting thought and be the best you can be.
And that's all you can do. Be the
Yeah.
best you that you can possibly be. And as I say to people often, where you are today is not where you're going to be tomorrow.
Hmm.
However, where you are today is where you are today. Start from where you are. So if the only thing that you can do in this moment to show kindness to yourself, the only thing you can do that you can be comfortable with, or just slightly uncomfortable with, to show kindness to yourself, if the only thing you can do is to write a short note to yourself, telling yourself, you know what, you're really amazing. And you simply fold that note and you put it someplace where you can pick it up later and read it. You know what? You began where you are. And when we are going on a journey, especially as women, when we're going on a journey to learn to love ourselves, we're fighting against thousands of years of beliefs and societal norms. So, as a consequence of doing that, we do feel some tension about taking care of ourselves, about showing ourselves love and kindness. And also, we start feeling tension and discomfort about saying no to things when they are not going to serve us.
Ooh, I like that one because sometimes it's hard to say no. And it kind of goes back to that put your own mask on first.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be strong in order to support other people. So take the time to build your strength. Take the time to do it for you so that if you want to, you can help others. Have you ever been to a point where you couldn't help somebody else because you just couldn't? You didn't have the energy? Everything in your body and brain says, I want to, but your body's not cooperating. And it's like until you can take care of your own self, you can't do all the things that you wanted to do.
But if people don't embrace the oxygen mask analogy, um, which I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, I'm tired of that analogy. Okay, I get it. It's one of my favorite analogies. I'm going to put that out there. But if you can't embrace that one, visualize this. You're at a party. Your job is to take care of all these people who are at the party. And your job is to make sure that they always have a full glass of water. So you have one pitcher, and that's all the water that you have for this entire party. So you start pouring the water into the glasses, and then people drink it. Well, your job's to keep those glasses full. So you pour the water, and then eventually the pitcher is going to run out of water, isn't it? Well, your job, and this depends on everything, is to keep those glasses full. So, being the creative person that you are, you start working up the spit and you start spitting into the pitcher and you start pouring into the glasses. Well, that's kind of disgusting and revolting, and you probably never would do that in your real life. But you know what? This is to help you understand what we do. You keep spitting into the pitcher until you absolutely have no more saliva in order to put it in the pitcher. And then you are trying to scrape, whatever drip or drop is left in that pitcher and put it into somebody's glass. And who are you serving? In that moment, who are you serving?
Nobody.
Nobody. Nobody. You're not even serving yourself, are you?
No, you've just depleted everything out of your body that gives you the energy to even move.
And isn't that what so many of us do?
Yes.
And then we wonder why at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, we feel as if waking up another day is going to be too hard.
I've been there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, yeah, I just can't keep pouring. I don't have anything left. So how do we fill up that pitcher and our own glass so that we can keep serving? And we're going to take a break. When we come back, Leslie, I want you to answer that question. How do I refill the pitcher? Be
Perfect.
right back.
This podcast is sponsored by Lara Jane Coaching. You know you're ready to silence your inner bully voice. Let Lara Jane support you with coaching. To schedule an introduction call, go to larajanelayton.com.
All right, we're back, Leslie. I hope you have something magic because when you're telling that story, I lived it. My body was draining. And I'm like, I've been there. I've done that. How do we fill that back up?
The way that we fill that back up is we start with a routine early in the morning. Yes, it may mean that you get up 10 to 15 minutes earlier than you normally do. But you start by having written conversations with yourself. Get a notebook, not a big giant college rule 8.5 by 11 notebook, but a small, let's say 6 by 8 notebook, one that you like, one that's laying around the house, a pen that you like to write with. Put those next to where you like to sit in the morning and start having written conversations with yourself. And the first thing that you do in order to begin is you ask yourself in writing, how are you doing? Tell me, how are you really doing today? And then answer yourself. And then as you start pouring out what you've really been feeling, yesterday when this happened, I was so angry. I wanted to take something and I wanted to throw it. And then I wanted to stomp out. And then I wanted to write all that down. And when you get to the period at the end of that epic novel, I want you to write, of course you felt that way, period. Why wouldn't you? And then I want you to just sit for just a moment. Because oftentimes what we are so desperate for is for someone to acknowledge our thoughts, our dreams, our desires, our wishes. However, the person that we need to acknowledge those things first is ourself. The person that we need to listen to ourselves first is us. When we start setting a boundary with ourselves that our thoughts, needs, wishes, desires, and emotions, all of them, good, bad, indifferent, whatever it is, all the way down to, I wish so-and-so were dead. Yes, that's a horrible one, but you know what? Haven't we all honestly had that feeling, that thought? Yes, let's be honest with ourselves. When we get honest with ourselves and we acknowledge what we are thinking, feeling, wishing, desiring, then we are no longer desperate for somebody else to come in and try and fill that need. So that's where we start with establishing that boundary with ourselves. And as I mentioned earlier, we teach other people how to treat us. So we start watching how we're talking about ourselves, how we're talking to ourselves. because everybody is watching and listening. So when we say, let's say the other day, I tripped and I fell, which really happened. I tripped and I fell. It happened. I didn't beat myself up about being clumsy or, anything else. It simply happened. And by not allowing myself to talk in a negative way about the fact that I tripped over something, it was a fact. I'm not allowing anybody else. So when somebody else tried to make a comment about me being clumsy, I cut them off. How did I cut them off? I ignored them. I ignored the comment. I turned away. I went somewhere else. We do not need to respond when people make negative comments to us. We have two options. If you've watched Legally Blonde, which is a great movie,
It's
we
cute.
can practice the bend and the snap. So when someone makes a comment to us that we don't want to allow to come into our space, we can practice the look and the turn.
Yeah.
And in doing that, in giving them the look and the turn, we are letting them know what they said, what they did was unacceptable. And we don't even need to say anything to them. We don't need to justify ourselves. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Or we can simply stand there and let their words fall on the floor with a thud and a splat, and all that garbage splashes back on their shoes, and we're simply standing there clean as a whistle. But what we've done is we've let them know without saying a word that behavior, that language, that way of speaking to me is not acceptable.
It is the perfect way. It's like, it almost sounds what some people would call manipulative, but right. But you are manipulating to the fact that it's not getting through your boundary that you set. Has nothing to do with them at this point. It's you're like, I'm turning my head because this is not coming in, and I'm moving away, whether it's physically or just emotionally, because I know I'm human and I'm good and I'm okay just the way I am.
Exactly. And, to circle back to the question you asked at the beginning just a moment ago, how do we fill that pitcher so that we can keep pouring? We fill that pitcher by being clear with what we are going to accept. And if we are clear with ourselves, what we are going to accept with regard to behavior towards ourselves, and we are having written conversations with ourselves and acknowledging our thoughts, our feelings, our wishes, our dreams, and our desires, we are going to start feeling filled up because we are no longer going outside of ourselves to get filled up. And as I often tell people, you may desire somebody to do something, but if you were to give them a script that scripted everything from body language to the way their eyes moved, how they dressed, the words that they said, every detail, and they were to enact what you had just laid out, you would be disappointed. And one of the reasons that you would be disappointed is it wouldn't feel authentic. It wouldn't feel natural. It wouldn't feel real. And I used to catch myself, struggling to find somebody to give what it was I was looking for. And then when I had the realization, I wasn't even giving it to myself. And so I started having these written conversations, telling myself how wonderful and amazing and talented and creative, et cetera, I am. And honoring, what I felt. I no longer needed to go outside of myself to get filled up. So if we can focus on what we think we are not getting from other people and instead start giving it to ourselves, then we can start feeling that filled up. But the other thing that happens is no gets easier. No, it gets so much easier. It gets easier at work. It gets easier at home. It gets easier in the world.
And we're so trained that you just keep people pleasing, that's what makes you, that's what makes people want you around. But I love my friends that set boundaries. I feel like I can trust them with everything. And so, why not trust yourself with that same love? I have a boundary and nobody crosses it because I love me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I allow that boundary to stay up, I now have the energy to be that non draining, authentic me. When you're faking it, that is emotionally draining. But when you are you, and, to me, honesty is the other thing that if you're lying, I can't keep up with it. I I don't want to remember all that stuff. Let me just remember the truth. And so it's just that authenticness. This is true for me. And it makes such an amazing difference on how you feel about you. You become trustworthy to you.
And if we focus on behavior and not people,
Mhm.
let's not label ourselves with labels that are really behavior. Let's focus on behavior. But as you said, friends who have boundaries, we trust them because they have demonstrated that their boundary is either inflexible or slightly flexible as long as they allow it. And we can have a boundary that is slightly flexible, but I promise you, there are people in your world that are going to push against that boundary and they're going to test it. And those are the times when you say to yourself and you say to them, right now, this is what I need to take care of myself. Or if that's something they may not hear, you simply say, right now, this is not going to happen. Just make it very clear because they are going to try and push that boundary and they're not going to like it that you've erected a boundary in the first place because your boundary used to look like one of those rickety fences, out in the country where half of the barbed wire's down and, the poles are leaning all askew and cattywampus. They're not expecting to see a beautiful cement fence, with trellises on it and all this kind of stuff. They're expecting that rickety country fence. And when they come up to that beautiful cement fence with all those trellises and everything on it, they're going to think, whoa, hey, whoa, somebody changed the rules and I don't like it. Well, you know what? Jane, who are you in control of?
Only me.
Mm-hmm. And who are you not in control of?
Anybody else.
Right. And if we remember that, we are only in control of us. We're not in control of anybody else. Then that will help us keep our boundary with ourself solid, because the boundary that we establish with ourself is going to dictate what the boundary between us and everybody else looks like. So understand that you've got two boundaries, the boundary with everybody else and the boundary with yourself. But the boundary with yourself is the one that dictates the boundary with everybody else. So we come back around to how can we be kind and loving to ourselves? I don't know about you, but I do like fences. Fences do make good neighbors, don't they?
They
So,
at least set a boundary, right?
yes, they at least set a boundary. So we come back around to how we talk to ourselves, how we talk about ourselves. And let's start right there. And then each morning, set your timer to get up, to set your alarm clock to get up 10 to 15 minutes early and have that time by yourself. I call that time, for me personally, my gardening time. That's the time, that I'm cutting the flower, and not literally, okay, because it's dark at the time that I get up. But I'm cutting flowers, I'm pulling weeds, I'm tending my garden. My most precious garden is myself. That's where I really start filling myself up so that I'm ready for the day.
I like the term. I've never called it gardening time. I've always called it self-reflection and gratitude time. But gardening is the same thing. It's like I'm getting rid of the weeds that have shown up from the day before. Don't need them to keep growing. They're here. They're okay. I'm gonna enjoy the beauty that it produced and love it and cherish it and nurture it to a point where it can continue to grow beauty. What a perfect thing to call your time in the morning.
And doesn't that feel amazing?
Feels peaceful too, like doable. Like, so we're going to set 10 minutes early. We're going to wake up. We're going to get our gardening book together. We're going to have some conversations with ourselves and spend that time, I think, appreciating who you are and identifying who you want to be today. Because I'm not the person I was yesterday. I want to be somebody different again tomorrow. But I still have some solid values and foundations that are going to come with me. And that's the you that you're going to keep building on. Pull the other things out, weed them out. They're gone. I like it. So, Leslie, do you have some last minute words of wisdom, ways to get a hold of you, or what's that one little thing they can do right now besides the gardening that could probably help them at least identify a boundary that they want to put up? How do you find that first one?
Well, for me, the way that I found the first boundary was getting clear about my intentions. And when I would say things, do things, I would ask myself, what is my intention in doing this? When we are having one of those hard conversations with somebody else, if we are clear on our intention and remembering we're not in control of anybody else, that helps us crystallize exactly what we want to say and what we will accept as the outcome. So start with checking your intentions on the things that you are doing and the things that you are saying. And then, really and truly, if that's difficult or sounds hard or sounds, a little bit too much, simply start with looking at yourself in the mirror, in your eyes, every morning at the same time, set an alarm, and go in there, look at yourself, just look in your eyes, and tell yourself, I love you. And that's it. It may be hard, it may feel weird, it may feel uncomfortable. But those are the words that you really need to hear and desire to hear. So it may take you, like me, a year to be able to say them without crying. And you know what? That is okay. That just let your soul know how deeply you needed that. And then I would say, you are enough exactly as you are in this moment. And if you don't believe it for yourself, I will believe it for you until you're ready to believe it yourself. And if you want to find me, best way is to go to my website, which is youcan'teatlove.com. And I do respond. It's really me.
Mm-hmm. And I do love that message because we do find ways to supplement love, drugs, food, sex. What do they call those? Extreme activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can still do those after you feel your own self-love, and they'll be more fun. But we do use them as a replacement for it. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you.
Friend, Leslie and I are not medical or mental licensed professionals. We are here for entertainment. People that have found some paths and things that work for us, and we just want to share that if you can get a glimpse of hope for a better future, that would make us so happy. I know nothing external can make us happy, but it still would bring joy to our soul. So thank you. Have a great day and stay tuned for the next episode.
Are you tired of waking up exhausted? You are not alone. If you're looking to take your life back, let's start with the simple step of adjusting your self-talk. Stay tuned for the next episode with your host, Lara Jane. Remember to follow the show so you don't miss a next simple step that you can use to feel more confident. And please leave an honest review.